The mission and the mistake. The stars outside the ship's window were calm, but inside the human ambassador ship Unity, Ethan Cole's heart beat fast. He had been chosen for a risky and important mission, to speak with the alien empire known as the Zarathi. No human had ever met their queen, and today, he would be the first. Ethan was trained in diplomacy, not war. But the tension between Earth and the Zarathi Empire had grown too much. One wrong word could cause a galaxy-wide conflict. He wore a clean suit, carried no weapons, and practiced the words in his head. When the ship landed on the Zarathi moon base, a group of guards led him into a grand silver hallway. The walls pulsed with strange blue light. The air smelled sweet but heavy, like flowers mixed with iron. At the end of the hallway stood a tall woman. No, not a woman, an alien. But she looked so close to human, Ethan almost forgot where he was. Her skin was smooth, light violet with glowing patterns across her neck. Her silver-white hair floated like it had no weight. Her eyes were golden and sharp, like they could see through his thoughts. "I'm Queen Zarila," she said in a calm, clear voice. "Welcome, human." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness. I come in peace. I hope we can start something good today." The Queen nodded and turned, leading him through a crystal door. Inside was a chamber that didn't look like a throne room, but more like a quiet garden. Glowing trees, a warm pool, soft lights above. It was peaceful, like a dream. They sat. They spoke for hours, but something felt strange. The Queen asked personal questions about love, about human mating, about emotions. Ethan answered carefully, not wanting to offend her. Then came the drink, a golden liquid in a floating glass. "A sign of trust," she said. He drank it. And that was the mistake. The room became warmer. His body felt light. His heart beat louder. His mind slowed, but not in a bad way. The Queen's voice grew softer, closer. She leaned forward. Her skin glowed brighter. Her hand touched his, and he didn't stop her. It was like gravity pulled them together. They moved. They kissed. They fell into the pool. The warm water surrounded them. He didn't know if it was magic, science, or just chemistry. But what started as a mission became something else. Something he couldn't explain. Something he didn't stop. They spent the night together, and when Ethan woke up, she was gone. Only a note remained. "You were not with the Queen. But what happens next will change everything." Ethan stood in shock, reading the note again and again. Not the Queen? Then who? A voice from the hallway spoke. She was her clone. He turned. One of the alien guards stood there, eyes cold. "You were sent to speak, but she wanted to study you. She sent a perfect clone, same body, same thoughts. But the clone made her own choice." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Why tell me now?" "Because the clone is pregnant." Ethan couldn't speak. "Pregnant?" The guard continued. "No Zarathi clone has ever mated before. It was not supposed to be possible, but now. This child could be something new. Half human, half Zarathi. The Queen knows. She is watching." Ethan sat down. His hands trembled. He came here for peace, for alliance. Now he had started a bloodline, and the real Queen? She had not even met him yet. But soon, she would. Queen Zarila's intrigue. The real Queen Zarila stood alone in her private chamber, her eyes fixed on the glowing image hovering before her. It was a perfect hologram of the clone, now visibly pregnant, her belly rising gently under soft silver robes. But Zarila wasn't looking at the clone. She was watching the child, a hybrid, half human, half Zarathi, something that was never supposed to happen. She waved her fingers, and the image zoomed in, showing the fetus in glowing detail. The child's DNA was still stabilizing, but already it was stronger than any Zarathi born in centuries. Fast brain development, strong immune system, unique neural patterns. The queen's golden eyes narrowed. Impossible, she whispered. And yet, it lives. A shadow moved behind her. It was her advisor, Karen, a tall, black-scaled alien with 6 eyes and a voice like sand on metal. This is dangerous, Karen warned. The people will never accept a clone bearing the future. Zarela didn't answer. She moved to a table and lifted a glass orb that shimmered like a living star. She did what I could not, the queen finally said. She bonded with the human, chose him, trusted him, and in doing so, she created life. Karen frowned. But it was not you, my queen. The clone may carry your body, your face, but not your authority. This is a threat to your power. The queen smiled slightly. No, she said. This is an opportunity. Far away on the human ship Unity, Ethan sat alone in the medical bay, staring at the floor. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. He kept hearing the clone's voice, her laughter, the way she held his hand before he left. And now she was carrying his child. He didn't know what to think. It felt wrong, but also not. The door slid open. A small alien drone floated in. It blinked red, scanned his face, and dropped a metal cube onto the floor. Then it floated away. The cube opened. A message began to play. The queen's voice. Human Ethan Cole, she said, you have caused a ripple in my empire, but not all ripples lead to ruin. The image shifted to show the queen herself now, the real one, sitting on a throne of crystalline vines. I wish to meet you, not through a clone, not behind a mask, but in person. Come, speak to me, learn who I am. The message ended. The cube vanished into dust. Ethan blinked. His heart raced again. The queen herself wanted to meet him, but why now? Back on the Zarathi homeworld, Queen Zarila walked alone through a biogarden filled with glowing plants and floating seeds. A child born from 2 species. It stirred something deep inside her. Not just curiosity, not just power, but hunger. For centuries, Zarathi had perfected cloning. They didn't use natural birth. Love was considered primitive, attachment, dangerous. But this clone broke the rules. And now, Zarila wondered what it would be like to break them herself. 2 days later, Ethan stood again before a grand silver door. He was back on the Zarathi homeworld. But this time there was no clone. The guard stepped aside. The doors opened, and Queen Zarila walked out. She was taller than he remembered. Her presence, colder, yet more alive. She studied him the way a hunter studies rare prey. You are different than I expected, she said softly. You touched something inside her, something real, and now it is inside me. Ethan tried to speak, but she stepped closer. I must know, she continued. Was it a trick, a mistake, or something more? He looked into her golden eyes. Didn't mean for any of it to happen, he said quietly. But I don't regret it. The queen tilted her head. Then you will not regret what comes next. She turned, her silver robe brushing the floor. Follow me. Ethan hesitated, then followed her into the unknown. Tests, traps, and truth. Ethan walked beside the real queen through a hallway made of glowing glass. Strange vines moved along the walls like they were alive. The silence between them felt heavier than armor. He didn't know if this was a trap or a test, but something told him, maybe both. Queen Zarila finally spoke. Do you believe in destiny, human? Ethan glanced at her, unsure how to answer. I believe in choices. Good, she said without looking back. Because you made one, and it changed the future. They reached a door guarded by 2 tall creatures with armor made from living bone. The queen raised her hand and the door opened with a hiss. Inside was not a throne room. It was a lab, cold, bright, silent. In the center of the room, a glowing cylinder floated. Inside it was the baby, not born, not grown, but developing fast in a strange, blue liquid. Its heartbeat echoed in the chamber. Ethan stepped closer. He saw tiny fingers, the curve of a small head. His breath caught. She allowed us to study it, said the Queen. The clone gave permission before her mind began to break down. Ethan spun to her. What do you mean, break down? She wasn't made for this, Zarila said calmly. Clones don't evolve. They obey. She didn't just disobey, she felt. That corrupted her. Ethan clenched his fists. She's a person, not a tool. The Queen watched him. So are you. Zarila led him deeper into the lab. She waved her hand and a second chamber opened. This time Ethan saw something shocking. 3 more clones. Identical to the one he had known, sleeping in pods, eyes closed, peaceful, unaware. You're making more of her? Ethan asked, shocked. No, Zarila said. These were made long ago, copies, kept in case one failed. I never used them. She turned to him. But I could. Ethan stepped back. Why show me this? The Queen walked slowly toward him. Because I want the truth. I want to know what she saw in you. Was it your kindness? Your defiance? Your body? Or something else? Entirely? Ethan's voice was low. If you think you can copy love, you've already failed. Zarila paused. Then she smiled, not cruelly, but almost sadly. Perhaps. Later that night, Zarila brought Ethan to her personal garden, far from the labs and guards. Strange, birds sang under glowing moons. A soft wind carried scents of honey and ash. They sat by a small lake. Silence returned. Zarila broke it. She called your name when she fell ill, she said. Over and over, Ethan stared into the water. I should have stayed. She needed me. She needs you still, the Queen said. But so do I. Ethan looked up. Zarila's eyes were glowing again, but not with power, with something else. Hunger, curiosity, maybe even fear. I touched your child's mind, she whispered. For just a moment. She's not like us. She dreams. She feels warm. That warmth didn't come from her mother. She reached out and placed a hand gently on Ethan's chest. It came from you. Just then a red alarm echoed across the sky. A voice spoke in Zarathi tongue, urgent, sharp. Zarila stood at once, eyes narrowed. Someone has entered the clone's chamber without permission. She moved fast, Ethan following behind. When they reached the room, a guard stood on the floor, unconscious. The glass pod holding the clone was broken. The clone was gone. Zarila's face turned cold. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Where is she? She's pregnant. She's not safe out there. The Queen turned to her guards. Find her, now. Then to Ethan she whispered, This changes everything. He stared at the empty pod. Everything just got more complicated, and the Queen wasn't asking questions anymore. She was acting. The Queen's proposal. The throne room was quiet, too quiet. Queen Zarila stood at its center, not in full royal armor, but in soft robes of black and silver. Her golden eyes stared at Ethan like she was reading his soul. Around them, guards stood at attention. No one spoke. No one moved. The missing clone still hadn't been found. And now, the Queen wanted a private conversation. But Ethan didn't trust her silence. He'd seen what she kept hidden. 3 spare clones. A child in a glass pod. An empire that feared love more than war. Zarila gestured to a long stone table. Sit with me, Ethan Cole, no tricks. Just words. Ethan didn't sit. I want to know what this is about first. The Queen smiled faintly. Fair. Then I will be honest. She stepped closer and even the guards lowered their heads. I want you to stay, she said. I want you to remain in this empire. Beside me. Ethan blinked. Beside you? As what? She didn't hesitate. As my consort. My mate. The word echoed like a thunderclap in Ethan's head. Queen Zerila circled him slowly, her voice low and steady. You brought something no ambassador ever could. A bond that crosses species. A child that bridges our worlds. But more than that, you brought change. Ethan kept his eyes on her. You already have power, you don't need me. But I do, she said firmly. The council sees the hybrid child as a threat. They want it erased, and the clone? They see her as broken. Her eyes narrowed. But if I carry your child, then no one can oppose it. No one will dare question it. She stopped in front of him. If I share in what you gave the clone, they will call it destiny, not accident. Ethan felt like the room was spinning. You want to use me to protect your throne? Yes, she admitted. And to, protect the child your love created. If she is to survive, she must be royal. Ethan finally sat. He looked her in the eyes. What happens to the clone? If she's found? The queen's voice was quiet now. If I'm with you, she becomes unnecessary to the empire. He stood, again. That's not good enough. Zerila studied him. Then help me protect them both, she said. Stay, rule beside me, and in time, maybe love me too. He took a long breath. Love isn't a strategy. No, the queen said, but it's stronger than one. Later that night, Ethan stood alone in the queen's private garden, hands buried in his pockets. His mind raced with thoughts. Duty, guilt, the clone, the unborn child, and now the queen's strange proposal. He hadn't come to this planet for love, war, or legacy. He came for peace, and now he was being asked to shape the future of two species. The night air was cool, silver leaves fluttered around him. From behind a pillar, a small shadow stepped out. It was the clone, pale, weak, but alive. Her eyes welled with tears when she saw him. Ethan, she whispered. He rushed forward, catching her as she stumbled. I ran, she said. They were going to take the child, use her, kill me. I couldn't let that happen. He held her tightly. You did the right thing. She touched her stomach, breathing hard. The baby. She's growing too fast. Ethan looked around. We have to get you medical help. The clone shook her head. No. You need to decide. If the queen has her way, you'll be by her side. She'll protect the child, but not me. Ethan's jaw clenched. Then the queen stepped into the garden. She had followed him. For a moment, everything froze. 3 lives, 1 man, 1 decision. Zerila spoke softly. I made my offer, Ethan. It still stands. The clone backed away, and Ethan finally understood. This wasn't about power. It wasn't even about politics. It was about who he was willing to fight for, and who he was willing to love, no matter the cost. Clash of wills. The clone was fading. Ethan could feel it in the way her grip weakened around his hand, her steps growing slower, and the light in her eyes dimming. They stood in the queen's private garden, the real Zerila. Just steps away, her expression unreadable. The queen watched silently as Ethan wrapped his arms around the clone. She was trembling, barely able to stand. She's breaking down, Ethan said through clenched teeth. You knew this would happen. Zerila didn't deny it. She was never made for motherhood. Her cells are unstable. You changed her, Ethan. Love changed her, and now she's paying the price. The clone lifted her head. Don't let them take her, our daughter. She's all that matters now. Ethan turned to the queen. If she dies, I swear. Zerila raised her hand. I don't want her to die, the queen said. But the empire might. They fear what she's become and what she carries. Ethan's voice rose. Then protect her. You're their queen. Zerila stepped forward. Not without a cost. Later, in the starlit halls of the Royal Medical Tower, the clone lay on a biobed. Alien machines hummed softly around her. Ethan sat beside her, not letting go of her hand. Zarela stood on the other side of the room, speaking quietly with her geneticist. Her face was cold, but her fingers trembled behind her back. The doctor whispered, "The hybrid child is stabilizing, but the host body is collapsing. We can save one. Maybe not both." Ethan heard. He stood and walked across the room. "You'll save both." The Queen didn't look at him. "If I order my people to save a clone, I risk rebellion. They will say I'm ruled by my emotions, that I am weak." Ethan's voice was sharp. "Then be weak." She turned to him, surprised. "Because for the first time your people might actually follow you because they care, not because they fear you." The Queen stared at him. No one had spoken to her like that in centuries. That night, a secret meeting took place. Not in the council chamber, not among nobles, but in a dark cave beneath the palace, a hidden healing chamber used in ancient times. Zarela had moved the clone there with only her most trusted staff. No cameras, no reports, no court gossip, just silence, medicine, and risk. Ethan paced outside the chamber while the doctors worked. The Queen stood nearby, silent for once. No words, no politics. Just waiting. Finally, the door opened. A young medic stepped out. "She's alive," she whispered. "Both of them are. For now." Ethan exhaled for the first time in hours. But the Queen did not smile. She simply turned and walked into the chamber. Inside, the clone looked pale but peaceful. Her belly had stopped glowing. A small pulse monitor beside her displayed a steady beat, her child's. The Queen stood over her. She did not speak. She placed a hand lightly on the clone's shoulder. The clone opened her eyes. Their gazes met. Mirror and origin. One born to rule. One made to obey. But now, both had felt the same warmth. "I hated you once," the clone whispered, "because you made me without freedom." Zarela's voice was low. "And now?" "I pity you," she said, "because you had everything and never used it to feel." The Queen didn't argue, she just nodded, and for once, she understood. Ethan returned to the garden later that night. He was exhausted, mentally and physically broken. The Queen followed him, this time without guards. "You've changed everything." "Human," she said. "My empire, my rule, even me." Ethan sat on the edge of the fountain, hands shaking. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," she said, "but sometimes history doesn't ask, it just chooses." She stepped closer. "I could still offer you the throne. My side. A dynasty built on strength." Ethan looked up at her. "You want my loyalty?" She nodded. "Then, promise me this. The clone lives. The child lives. No matter what the council says." Zarela paused. Then, for the first time in her reign, she bowed her head. "I promise." The Queen returned to the palace alone. But she wasn't the same. Her advisors noticed her silence. Her eyes no longer glowed with command, but with thought. She issued a royal decree. The clone would be recognized as a citizen. The child would be protected under royal law. And the Queen? She had one more decision to make. She summoned Ethan. 1. Last time. The Queen's turn. Ethan stood in silence as the Queen's personal guard escorted him into her private chamber. This time, alone. No clone, no advisors, just him and the real Queen Zarela. The chamber was different now. The bright lights were gone. The golden thrones replaced by soft cushions. The walls no longer glowed with power, but shimmered gently, like moonlight on water. This wasn't a throne room. This felt like a home. Zarela stood near a curved window, hands behind her back, looking out into the stars. She spoke without turning around. "She will live. The child too. Your terms have been honored." Ethan nodded but said nothing. "I did not summon you here for politics tonight," she continued. Her voice sounded different, less sharp, more human. She finally turned. "I summoned you Because I want what she had. Ethan blinked. You mean? Yes, she said, stepping forward. Not just a child, not just a political heir. I want what she felt in her last moments before her mind began to break. Love, fear, joy. All of it. She reached up and unclasped her royal crest. It fell gently onto a table. I ruled for centuries through fear and logic. I controlled every part of my empire, every person, even myself. Her golden eyes locked onto his. But you unraveled me. Ethan hesitated. Are you sure? Or is this still about strategy? Zarila stepped closer, close enough that he could feel her warmth. Do you think I enjoy being worshipped and feared but never touched? He looked at her carefully. Her beauty was different than the clone's. Where the clone was soft and sweet, Zarila was sharp, radiant, and powerful. But now, she looked vulnerable. I never realized, she said, how cold my world was, until she fell for you. She held out her hand. Not in command, but in invitation. Will you give me what you gave her? Ethan took a slow breath. He saw the pain she tried to hide. He thought of the clone, resting in a hidden chamber, safe, because he fought for her. He thought of the child, his daughter, growing stronger every hour, and now this queen, the most feared being in her galaxy, asking not for control, but for connection. He reached out, took her hand. I won't fake anything, he said. But if you want something real, start by being real with me. Zarila nodded, and for the first time she kissed someone without being royal, only a woman. The next morning the palace was quiet. The queen didn't leave her chambers, the council whispered. The clone, now recovering, felt something shift in the air. From her room she looked toward the tallest spire of the palace and whispered to herself, So, it's her turn now. Days passed. Zarila did not hold meetings. She did not speak to the Empire. She spent her time in silence, sometimes with Ethan, sometimes alone. One day, as she stood in front of the same stars, she whispered something unexpected. I feel tired. Ethan chuckled softly. That's what humans call being alive. She turned to him with a small smile. I think I could learn to enjoy it. Then came the message, urgent. From the outer colonies, a rebellion is forming. The news struck the palace like a blade. The council accused the queen of weakness. Some blamed the clone, others blamed the hybrid child, but many whispered a single name in hate, the human. Ethan stood beside the queen as her court turned against her, but Zarila did not raise her voice. She simply placed a hand over her belly. The court fell silent. I carry his child now, she declared. A second hybrid, stronger than the first. A future born from choice, not command. Gasps spread through the chamber. And just like that, the empire changed again. Back in the medical garden, the clone held her daughter, warm and alive in her arms. She looked up at the stars and smiled weakly. 2 children, she said softly. 2 mothers. 1 human. She knew the future would be dangerous, complicated, but now, it was hers to live. And Ethan? He stood between 2 legacies, one born in love, one born in power, and both his. Legacy of 2 queens. The twin moons of the Zarathi homeworld glowed softly over the royal sky dome. The capital, once proud and cold, was quiet, tense. Not because of war, not because of fear, but because the queen had changed, and the empire didn't know what to do with that. Inside the royal nursery, Ethan stood beside 2 pods, each one holding a miracle. His daughter from the clone, now blinking at the ceiling with curious silver eyes. And beside her, the unborn child within Queen Zarila, growing faster than any had predicted. 2 children, 2 mothers. 1 man caught between them. He didn't ask for this. He came for a peace deal. Now he stood at the center of a legacy that could reshape the galaxy. Ethan sighed and stepped into the garden. Waiting there was the queen herself. No crown, no guards, just a woman in flowing robes holding her stomach gently. "You've barely spoken," she said, sitting on a stone bench. "I don't know what to say," Ethan replied. "You're the queen. You used to make people disappear with a word. Now you're carrying my child. That's a lot." She smiled slightly. "I used to think ruling meant control. Now I see. It means responsibility. And that means feeling, even when it hurts." She looked up. "They're calling for war." Ethan froze. "With Earth?" "No," she said. "With ourselves. The council wants the clone removed. They say she's a genetic accident. A threat to the crown. And they fear the child, your daughter." Ethan's eyes hardened. "They'll have to go through me." "They just might," she said. Meanwhile, in the clone's private chamber, the young woman sat by the window, her child sleeping in her arms. She had no name. The queen never gave her one. But now, she had a voice. A small rebellion was growing among the common people. They saw the child not as a threat but as a sign, a bridge, a future. The clone, who had once been called a tool, now had followers who called her the first mother. Rumors spread that she was more than a mistake. Some even claimed she had inherited ancient instincts the queen had long lost. Zarila knew, and she was afraid, not of the clone, but of what she herself had never allowed herself to be, vulnerable. The next morning, the queen called a private meeting. No guards, no weapons, just her, Ethan, and the clone. They stood in the garden where it had all begun. The clone looked fragile, her silver hair tied back, her child resting nearby in a floating cradle. Zarila sat calmly, her royal robe simple but elegant. Ethan stood between them. "I wanted this to be peaceful," he said. "I never wanted power," the clone said softly. "I just wanted to live. And I never wanted to feel," the queen added. "But now I do, and it terrifies me." There was silence. Then the queen stood. "I will step down," she said. Ethan and the clone stared at her in shock. "My child, our child, will rule when the time comes," she said to Ethan. "Until then, the two of you will raise both children together. You will lead this empire, not through fear, but through choice." The clone whispered, "Why would you give this up?" Zarila looked at them with tired, golden eyes. "Because for once, I want to live, not rule." The news hit the Zarathi Empire like thunder. The queen has abdicated. Her child would become heir, and the human father, a stranger from Earth, was now part of the royal bloodline. The council was furious, but they had no power left, because something had awakened in the hearts of the people. Hope. The clone appeared publicly with her child. Zarila gave birth weeks later, her hybrid son, stronger than anyone had predicted. Both children were presented to the empire not as symbols of shame, but as the future. Years passed. Ethan stood on the high balcony of the new Unity Palace, watching his children play in the sky gardens below. His daughter Ayla was clever and calm like her mother, the clone. His son Kale was bold and curious like his other mother, the queen. Zarila now lived in the mountains, quiet and alone, finally free from the weight of the crown. She visited often, smiling softly at the way Ayla held her younger brothers, hand like a protector. The clone, who had taken the name Saria, became a symbol of quiet strength. She worked beside Ethan, forming peaceful alliances, teaching both children about love, patience, and freedom. And Ethan? He was no longer just a man from Earth, he was the father of unity. One night, as stars painted the sky, Ayla asked him a question. "Daddy, were we a mistake?" Ethan knelt beside her and shook his head. "No," he said, pulling her into his arms. "You were the best thing that ever happened to this galaxy." She smiled, her silver eyes glowing. "Even though I have two moms?" He laughed. "That just makes you twice as lucky." In the distance, Queen Zarila watched from her ship as lights flickered across the capital. She touched the communicator but didn't call. She had given up her throne, but not her heart. And as She turned away. She whispered one last thing to herself. They were never my legacy. They were ours.